are moving right along, back on track. So we have our next speaker is right here in the waiting room. So yeah, we are moving in now to a keynote. We are really excited to have Jimmy Fong here with us today. Jimmy is the Chief Commercial Officer at SEON. SEON recently raised a $12 million Series A round led by Creandum, who we've heard from now a few times. This is the largest A round raised by a Hungarian-born startup to date. SEON's main clients include Patreon, Air France, Ravelry, and Ladbrokes. Jimmy is also an advocate for democratizing fraud prevention and very passionate about technology. And today he's here with us to share his extensive knowledge about product-led growth and go-to-market strategies. So Jimmy, I see you. I think we can hear you. I see your slides. You are all ready to go. So the floor is yours. If anybody has questions for Jimmy, please go ahead and post those in the Q&A section of the stage chat. And I'll be back at the end to help ask some of the questions. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks, Mary. Thanks for that. And
right,
thanks,
cheers.
Marvin and Ishvan, for that last session there. Funnily enough, I am actually in Budapest. I'm based in London normally, but I was disappointed that it was full virtual. Man, I was in town, so we could have done this in person. Anyways, cool. Yeah, exactly. Next year, right? Cool. So SEON, as a fraud detection startup, we believe very much at the core of what we do and what's helped us in our very short life, now coming up for 4 years. It's really the kind of our GTM motion is kind of badged under PLG, product-led growth. So my plan today is actually to update the kind of audience here on kind of what's helped SEON, and quite frankly, actually share a number of mistakes, quite frankly, we've done, and to be very open about those, even though we are massive proponents of letting our product do its selling for us. So that's my objective today, is to share, quite honestly, a lot of the mistakes we as a startup have made, learning how to be effective at PLG. And just as overall context, by the way, we are still in that, I would say, baby phase. We're always iterating on it just now. So this is, even for us, the early stage of our journey in product-led growth. I popped that title on there. Yeah, curious if anyone knows the quote that I'm riffing from that point of view. It's the Andreessen Horowitz quote in like 2011, where they talk about software is eating the world, right? And that's what it feels like. PLG is everywhere. It's become a bit of a fad, a bit of a buzzword, for tech companies. So I also hope the objective of this chat is to also dispel what that is as well. But yeah, like I said, not to suck at PLG, and we're speaking from our point of view as well. With that in mind, let's level set here. Let me just go into the controlling mind. Cool. So let's level set. Let's take a step back and think for everyone here what this product-led growth is all about. I joined SEON myself a year and a half ago, 1 week before UK lockdown, and I'd spent about 14 years at that time in the risk detection space. So really fortunate to join early stage ventures that did really well and were acquired by, kind of larger players like Visa and American Express, for instance. And like my whole experience of building up enterprise teams internationally was kind of the core of what I knew and did. And I joined SEON partly because it was the opposite playbook. And it's probably reflective of, SEON is started by 2 young co-founders right out of a really good university, Corvinus, so mid-20s. And for them, they literally did not understand the world of where somebody would even potentially buy and procure a B2B SaaS product without Googling the heck out of it and doing their own research. So what product-led growth is, the first thing to share is, it's really, I think, it's a reaction against the buying purchase, the process changing completely. So where it used to be in the past where, a CX person would make a decision and a tool be adopted downstream, that's no longer the case, right? It's the operational target buyer persona having a problem and finding tools that help them and actually bubbling up, so bottom up, if you like. So that's kind of the first thing to mention there. It's changed. And the good news for all of us, we all get this, right? We're all B2C consumers ourselves. So we're used to, the likes of Spotify, Netflix, and just having an amazing experience when you go ahead and try that product and use that product. So a lot of the learnings from product-led growth, it kind of in our view, is actually the best B2C companies are doing as well. So the world's changed, that's the first thing. But here's the other, the big macro, that why product-led growth has become, I think, the dominant strategy just now. And it's down to, let's wind back the time a decade ago when we look at SaaS. This is in MarTech. You've all seen these ridiculous logo diagrams, right? And then 10 years ago, it kind of looked like, it was very busy. That was 10 years ago, but look at it now, right? It's absolutely insane. And the reality is that's the same for the buyer. So your buyer trying to solve that pain problem, whatever it is, like when they do their own research, it is just massive saturation and oversupply. And it's really hard for a buyer to be able to discern, hey, should I use option A, option B, option C? So that's a big thing. So knowing that, for us, this was really about when someone has a pain, how has the buying process changed? And secondly, how can you make it easy for them to get to value quickly? That's the kind of the simple design behind it. From my role, I help out as the Chief Commercial Officer of SEON. So I help out for all things revenue. We are product-led, but there is a massive commercial benefit to this. So I know through the 2 days, there's probably been decent talk on things like unit economics. So the awesome news from my side and why I'm such a proponent of it is it's being product-led growth and actually having that philosophy has an absolute benefit in that acquisition cost. So letting someone bubble up, use your product, and if you've got the right instrumentation, seeing that these particular segment of customers are engaging with your product in a certain way, definitely lowers that CAC if you're able to be targeted about how you speak to them about helping them become a customer eventually. And then also from net dollar retention side, it's the kind of byproduct of giving value up front, right? They use it more, they find more use cases. So commercially, it's so sensible to go this route. It's worth mentioning as well what this literally means. So when I joined back then a year and a half ago, we're big proponents of a free trial, so allowing people to experience value. And even in that 18 months, we've kind of taken away the human element of it, so you can now self-serve. But the other one to consider is actually going full freemium. And like for us, we're very excited to say we've been working the last couple of months hard on this. We'll be deploying on things like Shopify, and we'll actually have a completely free tier. So that's very much our view. And it's based off data, as you can see here. It's kind of metriced well. So both are, good strategies, but we'll certainly be going down the freemium route there. It's super important to mention, in terms of product-led growth, for those who are utilizing this, there's so many examples. And what's important from this is it's actually very, very complementary to traditional kind of sales approaches. The other way that we look at it is it's based on stage of company. So we're just Series A financed back in March early this year. But it's based off different stages of how, your team itself. So our optimal view is that commercial sales, that will be layered in to complement product-led growth. And the ideal is that our sales teams are using our own product data to go speak to people that are raising their hand in terms of needing help. So, and this is up and down the board. That's kind of what you're seeing here, right? World-class, best-in-class companies where this is kind of seen as the complementary strategy to sales. Also, looking at history, I think the coolest thing for me is that when you chart public companies that have done well, and obviously just over the years, it's kind of only steadily rising. And for me, fun fact is the kind of originator of product-led growth is very own LogMeIn, right? A Hungarian origin business. To me, that's super cool that for us at SEON, we use that as this is our main growth go-to-market around that. And yeah, Log Me In was the one that originally started this. So the 3 bullets for SEON and what we're trying to do in terms of risk detect that we're really achieving via product-led growth is essentially making sure there is a try before you buy component. It's as much as possible self-serve is the idea. So just like with Shaper 3D there, it's the fact that somebody experienced value by themselves, and there's a viral element to that, of course. If it's good, there's a community element there. And then 3, especially bear in mind the fact that the world of SaaS in pretty much every discipline, it's really congested. So if you're the buyer, the only real way to kind of test and be able to see, does product A do what you need versus product B, which one's better, is actually at the end of the day is to stick it in that merchant, that customer's hands, right? And to apply their own specific use cases of how to get it helping them. So it's de-risking the selection. That's kind of what to us product-led kind of helps with. So for us as design, when we launched into market, the reality is fraud detection has been around for 20 plus years now. Ever since e-com kind of blossomed, like fraud detection technology just came in hand, because obviously you've got to protect online payments the moment you start taking them. So there's a really good market for it in terms of like excellent suppliers, great companies. But for us, as per kind of the macro theme that the buying process is changing, where we look to actually the best in class examples aren't in our own domain because it's a little bit more conservative. It's not product led in that sense. But the 2 that we love are the likes of Calendly for scheduling and MailChimp. And the really cool thing from all of these kind of like little success stories is there's an absolute metric benefit of going down this model. And if you like, applying certain things like freemium, like the MailChimp example there, when they swapped for their own product there. So kind of what this means to say and why it's important, then I'll hop into the mistakes we made there, is at the end of the day, we combine using product-led growth as our main go-to-market motion by letting people sample our tech with the least amount of friction as possible. But this dovetails into also something that our startup massively believes in, is the inbound philosophy. So for all of you familiar with HubSpot made this famous, right? Again, it's the reaction to the buying process is changing. And with research, it's making sure that you're providing and being found on stuff that's actually useful to your end target buyer persona. And then it's a flywheel, right? Delighting the customer, having CS help them and be successful. It's a flywheel there. So I would say the 2 are hand in hand for SEON as a go-to-market motion, product-led growth, and also the inbound methodology. But it's worth dispelling, when I think the kind of first kind of thoughts of PLG often are, oh man, what does this do to my sales team? What does this do to our SDRs, etc.? And if it's deployed correctly, it should be absolutely additive. That's the idea, that the sales team are even more efficient because they are speaking to people that are experiencing real value. Maybe a little segue. So we're just implementing alongside our marketing strategy a product qualified lead. So this is to us much more valuable than the MQL because it's literally people that are getting certain engagement from the product, which we think is the proof of value, if you like. So mapping out, let's look at kind of what the key criteria are if we were to map this out. And we use this is internal ourselves, right? First thing, super intuitive, they understand. Second, they get to that light bulb moment, so they're using your product and there's value realization. So what we try and do is we're obsessed with trying to get to that light bulb moment as soon as possible. The free trials, freemium, of course, that helps lower the bar there. And then functionality inside, that they get more value out of it, they understand. And then lastly, helping an individual move an individual from a team access so that more team members get use. That's what the key criteria are, like how we map them out. How did we do? Sadly, the X is not a tick. It's when we launched. Certainly these were all things that we made classic mistakes in and completely ignored. Unfortunately, not ignored, just did not build in there. For ourselves, it was it was a learning journey. So at this stage, kind of how not to do it and what we did at SEON. We made some really daft mistakes for us. First one was for sure on data and instrumentation is realizing when things like our Google Analytics JavaScript was not even implemented in. So we couldn't even tell like what was happening for a fair decent amount of time. This is certainly not something we'd recommend as a good strategy. You kind of need to build instrumentation in from design of product and trial components. We had actually, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Kyle Poyer. Kyle Poyer's with OpenView. OpenView, West Coast VC, they specialize in being behind product-led growth companies. So people like Calendly, they were behind. But they're amazing at sharing, again, that inbound philosophy, sharing world-class resource on what it takes to be effective at PLG. Anyway, Kyle Poyer spent time with us to assess kind of how effective our self-boarding, our PLG strategy was. And he couldn't even get into our product. That was a little bit embarrassing, it has to be said. That wasn't the good sign. At SEON, when we did the original literally user experience with a blind sample group, man, we had 80% of folk completely fail on what the heck they were doing with our product. That was useful feedback as well. We've had multiple attempts. So we originally launched at the back end of last year, just at the end of Q3. And it was the experience of it was unfortunately, just so subpar that we had to decommission the thing instead. And so reworked on it. So the biggest one probably from our end is when we learned about the idea of having both conversational bumpers. So these are email inbox kind of help tips, and then also product bumpers, right? So when you land in, you're kind of steered on how to use the tech, where it takes you. Like for us, we made the classic mistake of using this as the band-aid for everything. The amount of tooltips we put in, the amount of explainers we did. I think we got lots of, in the UX testing, lots of click rage from people trying to fire through that. So definitely don't recommend that strategy. Be very selective. The metric to use, by the way, is about 4 to 5 steps max, 4 ideally, if possible. So good news from this side is, of course, and these are our learnings. This is what we're trying to put in place now still, is a big shift for us first was around actually, because product-led growth, it touches so many different teams, right? It's, of course, product, it's our sales colleagues, it's CS, it's really across marketing, of course. It was fairly unusual to be able to realign everything. So for us, this was literally the first thing we had to do at SEON was reorganize the teams to reflect that. The good news is from our side is we have this philosophy within our product teams in squads. It's mixed functionality, mixed kind of team members in there. So now we're bringing that over to kind of commercial team. So it's completely mixed squads there as well. Another good learning is be really clear with that PLG stack. It's not all stuff you have to build inside. We talked about instrumentation, so you can actually know what the heck's going on. There's really great kind of tools and platforms that can actually help accelerate the user flow, for instance, for example. But really good stack. So having a clearly defined stack is important as well. For us, though, big third one, and this is ongoing, by the way, very upfront. I would say experimentation with understanding what metrics move the needle. To give you the example, I think the famous one is Slack have worked out for them it's a good user for them is someone that onboards and they send at least 2,000 messages within a time frame. I believe for them it's like 2,000 messages in a month, something like that. But having it time bound. So if you can get to that level, knowing what engagement metric is the thing that gets them to light bulb moment, that shows stickiness and they'll keep with you, and then time bound it, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, depending on your product. For us, it's probably a month because it's a B2B tool. It doesn't get used every single minute there. And then all of this, remember, all of this, the context of all of this is to get that flywheel going, is to help and be focused in on alignment within the team. And that's a big change that's happened and very recently at SEON. And so we've had to juggle the whole scaling the team, but also changing the fundamental way that it's organized in real time together, which is a fun project there. But yeah, all of this is to kind of drive that flywheel, which at the end of the day, all of this is, of course, putting that journey, that buyer's journey, that customer journey at the very heart and center of that interaction. So for us, we've got some really cool takeaways now. Like, so where we're spending time on is making sure that the type of content, of course, is super valuable and useful for that point in the journey. So whether they're at the consideration stage or whether they're at more the decision stage, the purchase stage. So it's having decision content that's relevant to things like community for us. So for us, that's a really great way to get engagement with our team as well. So I won't go over all these points there, but for us, on especially on commercial and revenue there, absolute change in mindset in the last kind of 6 months from our side. It's moving to things that are much more cross-aligned, and that's helping us deploy a lot faster as a result. What that looks like, just to give you a bit of an idea, so product looks like this now, little squads where we're focused around specific functionality. So literally a team on onboarding, literally notification, and having multidiscipline within that team now. And that's really helping as well. So for us, what's moving forward? So we have our next big transfer work is we have today our try for free call to action, which is really cool. We are getting decent volume every week. It's at this point in time, it's something like over 1,200 signups every single week on that. But man, we are not doing an optimal job on helping them get to value quickly. We're still in experimentation stage. So watch this space for SEON. Our mission, as Maria shared, is to try and make the most cutting edge tools available to every business, small, medium, or large. And we think that the ability to test our tech without human intervention 24/7 is critical to that. So watch for us. We're doing some work which will hopefully launch very soon at the beginning of Q1. That'll improve that process there. Yeah, and maybe my last thing, guys, is listen, product-led growth from like a GTM motion is still fairly new, but I would go stronger. For us, it's not just product-led growth is a change in the buyer process. I'd go stronger and actually say that product-led growth is actually where we're all going to go. That's how all SaaS tech will be consumed. And thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy. That was great. Thank you so much for your honesty. I loved how we're getting the human side of what's going on at SEON. We do have a few questions from our audience, so I'll go through those now quickly. So first question, what do you think about the local startup scene in Hungary?
So we're lucky. So our Series A funder, Creandum, tapped us into, actually, it was really cool to actually speak to Istvan even before we kind of chose Creandum and decided to work with them. That was really helpful. So for me, I love it. The other personal story is I'm really nerdy into my note-taking applications, and and I was massively surprised when Craft.do turned out to be Hungarian, and then Creandum invested in them as well. So I love it for. You can tell from my accent, I grew up in Scotland. So we were talking about this yesterday with my teammates here. Like, I think those smaller populations, so kind of under 10 million like you guys, Scotland's even smaller, has a certain level of pluckiness to it. So it's been a real privilege in the last year and a half to kind of get to know a bit more of a domestic tech scene, and yeah, blown away by so many cool legacy things. So, the Skyscanner team working with, a Scottish tech company and having the engineering base out here all those years ago. Yeah, the names like, in the past, for instance, but still there, Prezi, Trezorit. Yeah, super cool names. Yeah, it's a privilege to kind of get to know it a bit better.
That's awesome. I forgot about that Skyscanner connection too. Yeah, that they're Scottish. So I guess we're having a little Hungarian-Scottish startup mafia going on
these
here.
Little plucky nations. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
These outside nations.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, other question. Can you talk a little bit more about how you tested the freemium versus free trial? Overall, it sounds like you saw better results with the freemium, but yeah, how did you run those tests?
Yeah, I would say the simple way of looking at it as well is, you're widening that top of the funnel, right? So it's super wide top of the funnel. And to us, we actually, I'll answer it in a slightly different way. We're in the process of stripping out all gates from marketing with SEON. So the idea is the same kind of thing. Just get it out into the world. If it's good, then we're kind of taking a bit on faith that leads to good engagement, actually helpfulness first, helpful. Secondly, good brand engagement. And then 3, when it comes to that point in that buyer decision to go engage, then that puts us in a prime position. So same analogy with that, kind of widening that top of the funnel. That's what our data showed when we kind of had those 2 options there. And it showed for us at the end of the day, we're trying to drill it all the way down to CAC on that kind of particular channel, and it was just more effective for us. And so we're actually, that's one of the things in Q1 that's kicking out. We're kind of doubling down on that strategy. So even in our core product just now, what you'll see is in the pricing tab in our website will be more like a standard SaaS product pricing, kind of a couple of plans, the free plan, which will always be available to help small business. Then there'll be like the 3 tiers, for instance. So yeah, our data showed that it helped CAC. So thus we are going down that route.
Yeah, it looked like you also maybe even had a better conversion at some of the different points in the funnel too with that, which I thought was interesting. So it's, sometimes I think that's why people abandon freemium, because the conversion is crappy, and it's maybe your funnel is wider, but it's not great qualified leads or whatever. But I guess that you guys found it not to be the case, so that's cool.
Yeah, and it is product. I would say it is product dependent as well. So one of the things we were really scared about, our tech is used for B2B online business, right? That's what it's used for. But what makes us stand out is the real-time social footprint of someone. That can also be used though in weird use cases, right? Like we have intercom chat on our website, and for a long time I manned it as well, just to get kind of literally feedback. And people would ask about, hey, this is my ex's email address. I kind of want to see what else I can see. So we have this weird like B2C, which we don't. That's not our business, right?
Wow.
So,
the spying on your ex use case. That's a cool one.
Exactly. Back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That's one of them for sure. So, so for us, it's we were really scared that by widening top of funnel, that will attract basically too many non-ICP kind of target buyer persona, as you said there. But the reality is, and I think this is okay, as long as everything else in that journey is consistent with helping the ones we have, then it's actually okay. We don't mind that that's the case. That's kind of where we're going just now.
Yeah.
More open, if you like, more open.
Cool. Okay, and then we have one last question. How do you do product-led growth if you don't have those essential collaborative features making you inherently viral? I think LogMeIn and SEON might have this in common.
Good question. So maybe I would demystify the viral component as well. I wouldn't get too fancy about that. For us, as long as it's like we're B2B SaaS, of course, yeah. So what we need though is we need for people to experience value on an individual level with an individual pain, and typically they'd be working in a team. So they it's in their interest to literally make their whole teams, hopefully the cool colleague that they work with, their job easier by automating the heck out of a bunch of stuff. And so that's the limit of virality from my point of view, is prove freaking usefulness, back to first principle. And maybe I forgot to say this in kind of what I wanted to cover, but like the takeaway from like a lot of what product-led growth is, it to me actually is actually around first principle, around just build stuff that people want to use. And so virality and stuff, like we're not doing anything super quirky. All we want, and our measurement of that is, are they adding in team members via a time box? Of course, we want to time frame this as well. So like the only two things in a couple of things to think about are really, can you get it into the hands of them without a human, and can they get to the aha moment by themselves without you needing to have someone explain it? And then thirdly, is there a way for more of them to use it easily, is kind of the way we look at it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy. This was super great. We're a couple minutes over, but I would love to keep talking to you. But this is awesome. Hopefully next time we'll be able to all get together in person next year. But until then, keep crushing it. We look forward to following your progress with SEON, and keep in touch.
Great. Thanks for having us on.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.